Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
It's really nice to be here, and now you can see 4 questions on the screen, right? Mama ikmanin eka පැහැදිලි කරන්නම්, and maybe we'll have the coordinators translate to Tamil as well as soon as I'm done. I want you to take only about 6 minutes, right? Keywords ටික විතරක් ලියන්න. ලොකු දීර්ඝ උත්තර දෙන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ, right? What is your most used emoji for this year? මේ අවුරුද්දේ පාවිච්චි වැඩිපුරම පාවිච්චි කරපු emoji එක මොකක්ද? ඇයි? Right? So you'll have to think about your social media life. Power cuts වලදී අකමැතිම දේ මොකක්ද? අකමැති දේවල් ගොඩක් ඇතිනේ. ඒ වයින් වැඩියෙන්ම අකමැති දේ මොකක්ද? Again why? Right? හැමතිස්සෙම අපි මොකක් හරි උත්තරයක් දෙනකොට ඇයි අපි ඒ උත්තරේ දෙන්නේ කියන එක ගැන හිතන්න පුරුදු වෙන්න ඕනේ. Third one, ඉතිහාසය දන්නේ නැත්නම් පොඩ්ඩක් අමාරු වෙයි. හැබැයි පොඩ්ඩක් කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න. ලංකාවේ ඉතිහාසයේ if you can go back in time අපේ අතීතයට ආපහු යන්න පුළුවන් නම් which year will you go to? 1948 වෙන්න පුළුවන්, 1815 වෙන්න පුළුවන්, මම දන්නේ නැහැ. එක එක්කෙනාගේ උත්තර වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකත් ඇයි? right? when එහෙම නැත්නම් අවුරුද්දක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඉන්සිඩන්ට් එකක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. World Cup එක දිනපු දවසට වෙන්න පුළුවන්, right? So which year or incident will you go to? Why? අන්තිම එක දැන් අපි හැමතිස්සෙම ලංකාවේ වෙනකොට කතා කරන්නේ අපේ ප්‍රශ්න ගැනනේ. අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන්ද positive දෙයක් මොකක් හරි? එක දෙයක්, right? So ඉක්මනට විනාඩි මම දැන් ටයිම් කරන්න යන්නේ. විනාඩි 5කින් ටක් ගාලා උත්තර ටික ලියන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මම සෙන්ටර්ස් තුනෙන් අහනවා එක ගෲප් එකකින් උත්තර මට අවශ්‍ය නැහැ දැනගන්න කවුද උත්තරේ දුන්නේ කියලා, but I want an answer. Thank you. Okay, let's quickly identify some answers, and then you can ask yourself, think about your own answer, comparing it with the answers that are said. So let's start with Batiklo. I can understand Tamil to some extent, so if I can't understand your answer, you can have it translated, so you can speak in English or Tamil, but it's good to speak in English, so try to do that. Okay, Batiklo. First question. Any group coordinator, please keep track of which group is participating. Maybe you can call on the group, but one of the groups should give one answer, but the speaker should give his or her name. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, the most used emoji for me is happy face and thumbs up.
Okay, and why?
Because when I chat my friends, I already use happy face emoji, and thumbs up, I think if it motivates us.
Okay, good. You didn't tell us your name.
Yeah, my name is Atifa.
Atifa, right. Thank you, Atifa. Right, thanks. You can go back to your group. Jaila, second question.
Hello, my name is Daneka. So the verse, my least favorite part about the power cuts is the timing, because it's mostly at night, and at that time the heat is really a problem. Thank you.
Good answer. I agree with you. Thank you. Only the PTA center.
My name is Deshani.
Yes.
And I go back on 2018, so I can be with my O-level batch.
Oh, that's very nice. That's a nice answer, Deshani. Thank you. Okay, going back to Batiklo.
So the one positive aspect of life in Sri Lanka right now...
I'm going to interrupt you. Please tell us your name.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy.
Jeremy, yes.
Yeah. So the one positive aspect of life in Sri Lanka today is like we are facing a very bad fuel crisis. So I think even most of the rich people are trying to use bicycle, and that's good for health. And I guess through problems, we are trying to figure out ways so that we can improve our life.
Excellent. Thank you. So these are all very good answers. Thank you very much. It's also a way of not jumping into a topic and discussing it without realizing everything that we are living through, because we are living through a fairly unusual, difficult, and challenging time period, right? But in that, as you all also noticed, while there are difficulties, there are also some other aspects that make us think differently and maybe learn. Okay, and that's all relevant for what we are going to discuss. Now, according to the outline that I prepared for ourselves, we are slightly behind time, but let's see what we can do about that. Okay. So I am going to try to answer 5 questions up to about 10 o'clock. I may not be able to answer all 5, right? One is, who is a citizen? පුරවැසියෙක් කියන්නේ කවුද? Right, in general. So you can write that in your notebooks and think about it. Who is a citizen? පුරවැසියෙක් කියන්නේ කවුද? I hope the coordinators will provide the Tamil word as well, because that's important. I don't know the Tamil word for citizen. දෙවැනි එක තමයි, what are your rights and duties? අපේ යුතුකම් සහ වගකීම් මොනවද පුරවැසියෙක් හැටියට? එතකොට අපි ලංකාවේ ඉතිහාසය ගත්තහම, if we take Sri Lanka's history, how did we become citizens? අපි කොහොමද පුරවැසි භාවය ලැබුවේ? දැන් ඔබේ මගේ ජීවිතය ගත්තහම, we were born, අපි ඒ ගැන හිතුවෙත් නැහැ, අපි ඒ ගැන දන්නෙත් නැහැ. Most of us would have got a birth certificate. Birth certificate එක නිසා අපිට පුරවැසි භාවය ලැබුණා. Right? But මේකට ඊට වැඩි දිග කතාවක් තියෙනවා. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. ඊට පස්සේ හතරවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි, අද අපි පුරවැසි භාවය ගැන හිතනකොට මොන වගේ ප්‍රශ්නද අපිට මුහුණ දෙන්න වෙන්නේ? What are the key issues that citizens face in Sri Lanka? Key issues that citizens face in Sri Lanka. පස්වෙනි එකෙන් තමයි අපි ඊළඟ කොටසට යන්නේ. Do women enjoy rights as citizens in Sri Lanka? ලංකාවේ කාන්තාවන්ට පුරවැසි භාවය තියෙනවද? නෛතිමය වශයෙන් නෙවෙයි, නීතිය පැත්තෙන් නෙවෙයි. එතනින් එහාට ගිහලා අපි පොදුවේ ගත්තහම, are women able to be citizens in Sri Lanka? මම PowerPoint කරන්නේ නැත්තේ, අපේ තියෙනවා මේ PowerPoint එකක් තිබ්බහම ඒක දිහාම බලාගෙන ඉන්න pattern එකක්, right? So I can share these questions with you later, but for now just make some notes. දැන් මම දන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන් ටියුෂන් පන්ති එහෙම යනවාද කියලා හැම තැනම කියනවනේ මොකද්ද ලියා ගන්න ඕනේ කියන එක නෝට් එකක් වගේ කියවනවා. අපි එකෙන් මිදෙන්න ඕන, right? So very quickly, who is a citizen? What are your rights and duties as a citizen? How did citizenship develop in Sri Lanka? What are some issues citizens face in Sri Lanka? Do women enjoy rights as citizens? ඕගලන්ගේ ජීවිත අත්දැකීම් වලට අනුව දැන් මේ ප්‍රශ්න ගැන හිතලා බලන්න. Right? I will give you some answers and some information and some ideas. Centers වල ඕගලන්ට ගැටලු මතුවෙනවා නම් මම කියන දේවල් ගැන මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ අත උස්සලා ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න, right? Feel free to stop me. Okay. දැන් අපි කොහොමද දන්නේ අපි පුරවැසියෝ කියලා? මම කලින් කිව්වා birth certificate එක, උප්පැන්න සහතිකය. Right? Anything else? Let's ask. දැන් මම එක centers වලින් අර පිළිවෙලටම ආපහු questions අහනවා. හොඳද? So we are back to Jayala. How do we know we are citizens? birth certificate. තව එක උත්තරයක් දෙන්න.
National identity card. The NIC.
Please speak louder if you can.
The NIC card. National identity card.
Yes, national identity card. Okay, going back to Ambilipitiya. One more. වැදගත් දෙයක් තියෙනවා. අවුරුදු 18න් පස්සේ අපි කරන දෙයක්.
Driving license.
Sorry?
Driving license.
Yes, driving license, but not always. Then අපි ඔස්ට්‍රේලියාවේ හිටිය අවුරුදු දෙකක්. We are not citizens of Australia, but we could drive in Australia with our Sri Lankan driving license. What do we do every 5 years now? Batiklo, back to Batiklo.
Passport. We have to renew our driving license. No.
Okay,
Election. Passport.
okay. These are not wrong answers. Back to Jayala.
Election.
Yes, voting at an election. ලෝකයේ ගොඩක් රටවල් වල පුරවැසියන්ට පමණයි ඡන්දෙ දෙන්න පුළුවන්. Okay, so birth certificate, national identity card, passport. To get a driving license, you need to be a citizen, I think most of the time, but not always. But voting. Okay? හැබැයි citizenship කියන එක, පුරවැසි භාවය කියන එක මේ documents වලට විතරක් සීමා වෙන්නේ නැහැනේ. පුරවැසි භාවය කියන්නේ it's a cultural concept. සංස්කෘතිමය වශයෙන්ුත් අපි කියනවා අපි ලාංකිකයෝ කියලා. ශ්‍රී ලාංකිකයෝ. දේශපාලනික වශයෙන් දැන් සමහරක් කට්ටිය උඹලන් තාම තරුණ වුණාට කියන්න පුළුවන් මම ඡන්ද දෙන්න කැමති මේ දේශපාලන පක්ෂයට. මම මේ අනිත් දේශපාලන පක්ෂයට කැමති නැහැ. මං හිතන්නේ ලංකාව මේ විදිහ වෙන්න ඕන. Right? So we have political ideas as well. So citizenship, පුරවැසි භාවය කියන්නේ මේ legal documents එක්ක එතනින් එහාට යන ලොකු සංකල්පයක්. කවුද ශ්‍රී ලාංකිකයෙක් කියන්නේ? Who is a Sri Lankan citizen කියන එක ගැන අපි culturally උත්තර දෙනවා, politically උත්තර දෙනවා, සමාජීය වශයෙන්ුත් උත්තර දෙනවා. Even socially we think of the idea of citizenship. Right? දැන් ගොඩාක් අය අතර තියෙන වැරදි මතයක් තමයි ලංකාවේ ජනාධිපති වෙන්න නම් සිංහල වෙන්න ඕන, බෞද්ධ වෙන්න ඕන කියලා. අහලා තියෙනවද එහෙම එකක්? අහලා තියෙනවා නම් අත උස්සන්න please. right. දැන් මේක තමයි මගේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ පිටපත. right? මේකේ එහෙම දෙයක් සඳහන් වෙලා නැහැ. හැබැයි දේශපාලනික වශයෙන් politically when we think about our country we have these other ideas. හොඳද? ඉතින් පුරවැසි භාවය කියන්නේ ඊටමත් ලොකු සංකල්පයක්. ඒක තමයි මම කියන්න ඕනේ වෙච්ච මූලික කාරණය. Right? I'll give you time for questions. But we'll talk about the second idea. මේක ගොඩක් වැදගත්. මම මේකට විනාඩියක් දෙන්නම් ටක් ගාලා උත්තර ටික ලියා ගන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මම එක සෙන්ටර් එකකින් උත්තර අහන්න යන්නේ. Right? අපේ යුතුයකම් සහ වගකීම්. What are our rights and responsibilities as citizens? දෙකටම උත්තර තුන ලියන්න. What are our rights and responsibilities as citizens? What are our අපේ වගකීම් සහ අයිතිවාසිකම් මොනවාද පුරවැසියන් හැටියට? Right. Shall we go to the Ambilipitiya Center? Mr. Mallavaraj, can you ask someone to come forward? හැමතිස්සෙම උත්තර දෙන්න කලින් නම කියන්න. Right? ඉස්සලම අපි වගකීම්, අයිතිවාසිකම්. What do you think are our rights as citizens? Yes, Anna.
Rights, right,
Right to speak.
protest, right to learn.
Good.
Again, these are responsibilities to obey the constitution, keep the national harmony of the country.
Very good. One more answer. Someone else, maybe?
Right.
Sorry, it's not clear to me. We'll go to Ambilipitia then, if that's okay. Sorry, to Batiklo. Miss Gauri, one more answer for responsibilities.
Voting. My name is Natana.
Yes, ma'am.
Voting is the
Responsibility. Good. Thank you. Very good answers. දැන් අපි පුරවැසි භාවය ගැන හිතනකොට දේශපාලනික වශයෙන් or politically we can think of lots of rights, many responsibilities. දැන් උදාහරණයකට ගත්තොත් අන්තිම උත්තරය about voting. Voting is a responsibility. අපි පුරවැසියෝ නම් ඡන්දයක් වෙනකොට we must go and vote in a we must vote and we must vote in a responsible manner. ඡන්ද දෙන්න ඕන එක අනිත් එක ඡන්ද දෙනකොට ඒ කියන්නේ හොඳට හිතලා බලලා ඡන්ද දෙන්නත් ඕන. right? දැන් අපේ රටේ ඒක මේ නීතිමය වගකීමක් නෙවෙයි. දැන් අපි ඡන්දේ දුන්නේ නැහැ කියලා හිතමුකෝ දවසක. ඡන්දයක් එනකොට කවුරුත් ඇවිත් අපෙන් අපිට මේ පොලිසියෙන් ඇවිල්ලා කරදර කරන්නේ නැහැ ඒ ඡන්දේ දුන්නේ නැති කියලා. පවුලේ කට්ටිය සමහරට කරදර කරයි. යාළුවෝ කරදර කරයි ඡන්දේ දෙන්න කියලා. හැබැයි එච්චරයි. හැබැයි සමහරක් රටවල් වල ඡන්දේ දුන්නේ නැත්තම් දඩ ගහනවා. දැන් ඔස්ට්‍රේලියාවේ එහෙමයි. voting is compulsory. okay? ඉතින් මම කියන්න අදහස් කරන්නේ රටින් රටට අපි දේශපාලනික වශයෙන් පුරවැසියන් වෙන්නේ පුරවැසියා කියන්නේ කවුද කියන එක ගැන කතා කරනවා. right? but the constitution ව්‍යවස්ථාව රටක නීතිය විශේෂ අයිතිවාසිකම් සහ වගකීම් පිළිගන්නවා. දැන් මම කෙටියෙන් පෙන්නන්නම් මම මේක පෙන්නන්න විතරයි. මේක ගැන අපි සාකච්ඡා කරන්නේ මොකද ඒක වෙනමම ටොපික් එකක්. මේ ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් තියෙන constitution එක. right? මේක මේ ඇවිල්ලා chapter 3 fundamental rights. මේක බලන්න මේක සමහරට හැමෝටම තේරෙන්න පුළුවන්. No one can be subject to torture. දැන් මේ දවස්වල සමාජ මාධ්‍යවල කතා වෙන දේවල් නේද? පොලිසියෙන් කවුරු හරි අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්තාම තියෙන අයිතිවාසිකම් මොනවද? මේ සමානාත්මතාවය, equality. ටක් ගාලා මම යන්නම් වගකීම් තියෙන තැනට. sorry. අපිට පුරවැසි භාවය ගැනත් වෙනමම තියෙනවා chapter එක. මම ඒක ගැන අද කතා කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. wait. භාෂාව, language. මේ citizenship. ඒක ගැන අපි දැන් ඩිස්කස් කරන්නේ නැහැ, right? පස්වෙනි පරිච්ඡේදය chapter 5. මේ තියෙන්නේ. මේකට මේ ලොකු වචනයක් තියෙනවා. Directive Principles of State Policy කියලා. හැබැයි මේකෙන් කියවෙන්නේ වගකීම් ගැන. right. දැන් මම විනාඩි කිහිපයකට නතර කරන්නම්. I'm going to pause for a bit for the translation.
So we were looking at the questions. Can you remember the questions that Ms. Samarathna asked us? The 5 questions?
Yeah.
Yes? All right. So then what was the second one? We were talking about, yes, the rights and duties as citizens, right? And we came across some of the rights and some of the duties that the Amblipedia team told us about. So when we look at some of the rights that we have, can you tell me some of the rights that we have as citizens?
Oh, we can live.
Sorry, Putha, I didn't hear you.
We can live within Sri Lanka where we want.
Okay. All right. And Amblipitia told us that we had the right for speech.
Talk, learn.
Yes, to learn. Yes. So voting now, voting, what Ms. Samarathna said was actually a responsibility. So that falls under one of our duties, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. And what else? Was it clear before that, Puta?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. So if you do have a problem, then and there, just drop me a message, all right? And then I will tell Ms. Samarathna, and then we'll put it to English for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Susie, and thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so I can speak only in English, but I know if I do that, also it's going to be difficult. So that's why I'm using 2 languages. I'm sorry I can't use all 3. I would like to, but unfortunately I don't have those skills. Right. Then in the Constitution, I just showed you we have rights, fundamental rights. We also have duties. Right? එතන duties වගකීම් තැන we have වගකීම් responsibilities for the state, right? And also for citizens. Then අතන සමහරක් උත්තර, some of the question answers that you gave were actually very good. Let me just show you that part of the Constitution. I think somebody said to respect the Constitution. Yeah. මෙතන තියෙනවානේ freedoms, fundamental duties. Right? Then somebody said national unity, I think. Maybe you're studying political science, I don't know. But good, right? To respect, this, I think this is very important. These 2 are very important. To respect the rights and freedoms of others. Protect nature. We have a responsibility to protect nature. Especially young people, I think, must also recognize your duty to respect, look after public property. Right? Not to pollute the environment, not to damage public property. These are things that we have to learn as citizens. දැන් මේක අපිට ගොඩක් දීර්ඝ වශයෙන් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්, but that's not my task today. I'm just identifying for you rights and responsibilities as citizens. Then තුන්වෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ. How has citizenship developed in Sri Lanka? Again, I'm going to ask you to think about it, right? All of us have learned about Sri Lankan history. ලංකාවේ කොහොමද පුරවැසි භාවය කියන එක පටන් ගත්තේ? දැන් ඒක I'll give you some ideas, right? So අද අපි කතා කරන the citizenship that we talk about today goes back to our colonial period. අධිරාජ්‍යවාදී කාලයට තමයි අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම යන්න ඕනේ. So the British, the Portuguese and the Dutch came, but then the British came. They took over the entire country by 1815, right? And they set up a government. පළවෙනි සැරේට අර අලුත් ක්‍රමයට රජයක් පැවැත්තුවා. But when they did that, did we have the right to vote in 1815? Can I ask Batiklo? In 1815, did people living in Sri Lanka have the right to vote?
No.
Good. I'm asking Jayala now, when did Sri Lankans get the right to vote? ඡන්දය ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න අයිතිය ලැබුණේ කොයි අවුරුද්දද? සර්වජන, universal. හැමෝටම ඡන්දය පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්.
1931.
Exactly. Thank you. So 1931 is an important year. මුළු ආසියාවෙම, whole of Asia, right? From Turkey to Japan, Sri Lanka was one of the first countries to give everyone the right to vote, men and women. Up until about 1960, and I think even today, there are some countries where they give very limited rights for women to vote. Okay? So that's the first thing to remember. 1931 ඉඳන් ලංකාවේ 18න් වැඩි අයට ඡන්දෙ දෙන්න අයිතිය ලැබුණා. Before that, what happened before that? ඊට කලින් මොකද වුනේ? Before that, based on education, based on property, based on ethnicity, whether you were Sinhala, Tamil, etc., people had a right to vote. Right? So you had to have a certain amount of property කියන්නේ දේපල. You had to have a certain level of education if you were to vote. So, to answer my question, how did citizenship develop in Sri Lanka? It took a long time during colonial rule to recognize everyone's right to vote under the constitution. Right? ඒක පළවෙනි කාරණය. That's the first point. Second point is a bit difficult, but also very important to remember. Now, how many of you have been to see the tea plantations, either in Nuwara Badul area or down south? Okay, so I see someone in Jala raising your hand. In the second row, the gentleman in the grey t-shirt. Yes. Who plants this tea? Can you tell me? You can come to the hot seat if that helps, because otherwise I can't hear you. Come, give us your name.
My name is Danika. So
Repeat your name, please. Let's have a chair there. Thank you.
my name is Danika.
Laneka, yes.
So I have seen ladies plant the trees.
Yes. Yes. What is their historical origins?
I really don't know that.
Okay. Anyone else from Jayala who can help Laneka? Thank you. So that first answer he gave is very important. We are coming back to that after 10 o'clock. He said women, he has seen women planting and plucking the trees, tea trees. Anyone from Ambilipitia? Workers in the tea plantations. What is their historical origin?
They are from South India.
Correct. Thank you very much. Right? You didn't tell me your name.
I'm Sandini.
Sandini. Because now I'm keeping my screen reduced. I can't see. Now, everyone else in Ambilipitia, I must get you all also to answer. Mr. Mallavarachi, please encourage others also. නැත්තම් හැමතිස්සෙම එක්කෙනෙකුට වගකීම බාර දීලා බෑ. වගකීම් තියෙනවා හැමෝටම. Right? That's what we are discussing today. Good. Thank you very much. So, some of you will know the history, some of you don't, but you need to understand this. So, read about this, okay? For a lot of different reasons, the British brought workers from South India to work in the tea plantations. Right? 1948. In 1948, when we got independence, one of the first things that our Sri Lankan parliament did was to bring in new rules about who can be a Sri Lankan citizen. ඒකින් මොකද වුනේ? මේ tea plantations වල ඉන්න බහුතරයකට ඡන්දෙ දෙන්න බැරි වුණා. පුරවැසිභාවය නැති වුණා. ඒ කියන්නේ පුරවැසිභාවය ලබා ගන්න බැරි වුණා. Right? That problem went on for a long time, up to about 1970s, 1980s. I don't know if you have had this, but even today, if you talk to some of the people who work in these tea plantations, they think of themselves as being connected to India because they've had to face this problem. identity card ගන්න අමාරුයි, birth certificate ගන්න අමාරුයි, right? So that was one of the big problems Sri Lanka had. And this is a serious problem because like Janika said, they were growing tea. Tea is a main export for Sri Lanka. So they were bringing in a lot of money. Now we all know how dependent we are on dollars, right? They were working for the country, bringing in a lot of money, but they didn't have citizenship. Even today, many of them don't have a right to property. They have lived in small homes for a long time, 3 generations, but they don't own the property that they live in. Okay, again, a very important topic. I'm just flagging it for you. There's another important issue about citizenship. There are 2 more. This one, so about the workers in the plantation, and 2 more. What's the second one? Where people have told the government, you are not treating us properly. You are not giving us equal rights or treating us fairly. ඒක අපේ ඉතිහාසයේ දෙසරයක් වේ. 3 සැරයක් වුණා. Anyone? Any center? Let me. අත උස්සලා පුළුවන් නම් උත්තරයක් දෙන්න. ඇඹිලි පිටියේ කට්ටියත් මේක දන්නවා. බැටික්ල වල ඉන්න කට්ටියත් මේක දන්නවා. ජායල ඉන්න කට්ටිය directly දන්නේ නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන් සමහරක් වෙලාවට, but we all know the answers to these questions. In 1971 and 1989, what happened in Sri Lanka? Coordinators, please help me. Get other students who didn't speak so far to also speak.
Two interactions.
Sorry?
Please.
Please repeat. It's not very clear to me.
Interactions.
Insurrections. Yes. What's your name, please?
I am Isuru.
Isuru. Very good. Young people from the south in Sri Lanka fought against the state. Why did they do that? They said there is inequality, අසමානාත්මතාවයක් තියෙනවා කියලා. People, ඒකට ගොඩක් හේතු තියෙනවා. එක උදාහරණයක් තමයි, one example, they said people in the villages in Sri Lanka, that is most of the people, that they didn't have the same rights that people, say for instance, in Colombo had. And they said the government was corrupt and they chose to be violent. And that led to a lot of human suffering. So you all were fortunate enough to be born long after those incidents. But you know that these are still problems that we talk about in Sri Lanka. So thank you. Let's go to Jael. What's the other big problem we've had about citizenship in Sri Lanka? People in Batikla will know the answer to this. Another group of people said, you are not treating us properly. Please treat us equally. It's the war. For 30 years, certain groups in the north and the east said, we are also citizens of Sri Lanka. Right? Now, even today, see that we are having a discussion. I am speaking in English and Sinhala. But if anybody wants to understand in Tamil, we have to wait and give the translation. So we can say equality for majority and minority. ඒ කියන්නේ බහුතරයට සහ සුළුතරයට. Majority and minority. How do we treat people equally? අපි සුළුතරය වෙන්න පුළුවන්, බහුතරය වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ගැහැණු වෙන්න පුළුවන්, පිරිමි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි හැමෝම පුරවැසියෝ. We are all citizens, whatever we are. So the government, the state must treat us equally. එතනත් උනේ ඕක කොහොම කියාගෙන ගිහින් people became violent and fought with the government. And that again led to a lot of violence. People died, property lost, And those problems are also still continuing today, even though the war is over. Remember? So, what am I trying to show you? Citizenship is something we get from the Constitution. It's something we get from our birth certificate. It's something we get from our parents. But it is also an idea, eka sankalpayak. And in Sri Lanka, with the example I gave you, I wanted to show you this concept, me sankalpaya, is we think about it in terms of the majority. Bahutaraya tulin tamai api citizenship ගැන හිතන්නේ. හැබැයි අපේ රටේ බහුතරය විතරක් නෙවෙයි ගොඩක් වැදගත් සුළුතර කණ්ඩායම් කිහිපයක් ඉන්නවා. We have many minorities in Sri Lanka. Right? And in our history, we can say we got universal, ලොකු වචනයක් ඔන්න, universal franchise. I will put it up when you're on the break. I'll put up these keywords for you. Universal franchise කියලා අපි කියන්නේ හැමෝටම ඡන්දය ලබා දීමට තියෙන අයිතිය. We got it in 1931, but 1948, 1956, 1971, 1989, 1983, right, are only some examples. මම ඔය හැම විස්තරයක්ම අද කිව්වේ නෑ. I didn't talk about all those incidents. But all those years, Sri Lanka had very bad experiences because people didn't feel that they were being treated in the same way. Okay, right. Now, last question. And you all are going to get a break. Okay, I'm jumping the fourth question. We go to the fifth question. Do you all think women enjoy rights as citizens? Take 1 minute to think about it. Write your answers. Do women in Sri Lanka enjoy rights as citizens?
We have all rights, but everyone don't give the rights because I have the right, but we can't go alone in the night time or any time. Because our culture, if our parents said you don't go anytime, you don't go alone. We can't go to the Colombo or Jaffna or alone. We want always one man, our sister, brother or father or anyone. So we have rights, but we can't use it.
Very good. What's your name, please?
Gayatri.
Gayatri. Thank you very much, Gayatri. Let's go to Ambilipitia now. And I think we are going to hear new voices. Yes, Ragya.
I think we have a freedom, not from the home, from the society.
Okay, good. Again, good answer. Last opportunity goes to Jael. We would like to also hear men give us your responses. Wendy, could we have a young man tell us what they think? If that's possible, please.
Jala, you can unmute. I can see Wendy teachers just come back in. So Enuka, Prashant, Nimesh. Not Danaka. Danaka has come already twice. Someone else. Come on. Quickly. Prashant, Enuka. Is Ravidu there? Tushan? Dilina?
You know all of them.
I'm seated at Jala. So they're in the classroom and I'm in the office.
Come, it's important to hear men speak up their views on this. And look, there is no one right answer. There are only answers. There are no right or wrong answers.
Prashant, yes, come. I can see Danaka looking at you.
Good.
Well done, Prashant. Good job.
So, in my personal view, the community uh, won't give the chance for their rights, but as well, I think we give the chance for them.
Good. So you're saying at a personal level, we recognize their rights, but the community may not be recognizing rights of women. Okay. Very good. I just quickly summarize what we tried to discuss in this first hour. Okay. We asked ourselves, who is a citizen? And we asked that question generally. Poduve, we asked ourselves, who is a citizen? Right? The main point to remember about a citizen is this. When you are a citizen of a country, your government has certain responsibilities to you. Right? We are under the protection of that state. Now, again, to give you an example, when COVID-19 spread across the world, you will remember the Sri Lankan government sent a plane to China to bring back students. Right? So why did they do that? Why did they decide to send planes? Same with the Australian government. Several governments sent planes to different parts of the world to bring their citizens back. That is because governments have a responsibility to look after their citizens in the country and outside the country. ඒක තමයි citizenship කියන එකේ තියෙන වැදගත්කම, right? And there are many other points. Another point is, let's say I travel to Germany today. To go to Germany, I need a visa because I am not a German citizen. I don't need a visa to come back to Sri Lanka. I don't need an excuse. Anytime I want to leave the country, I have the freedom to do that. Anytime I want to come back to the country, I can do that. I have to be able to pay for my plane ticket, but otherwise I can. Now, last week, if you watched the news, you'd have seen some Sri Lankans went illegally. Niti Virodhi lesa, they tried to go to Australia. People are trying to go to India without a visa. Because you're not a citizen of India or Australia, you can't just go and try to get into a country. The other point about citizenship is it's a legal issue. It's a nitimeya deyak. But beyond that, it is cultural, it is social, it is historical. Citizenship is cultural, social, historical, and legal. Okay. What are our rights and duties as citizens? Chapter 3 of our Constitution gives us all our rights. We have several rights, but we also have duties. Right? Wagakim තියෙනවා. එතනත් වගකීම්, when we talk about duties, අපිට නීතිය ඉදිරියේ වගකීම් තියෙනවා, but beyond that we have an obligation too. Again, I'll give a new example. Now today, as we all know, lots of people are trying to leave the country because they're finding it very hard. We can ask ourselves, do we have a moral obligation to stay? අපිට නීතිමය වශයෙන් නෙවෙයි. පොදුවේ ගත්තහම වගකීමක් තියනවාද ලංකාවේ ඉන්න. දැන් මං ගත්තොත් I am a beneficiary of free education. විශ්වවිද්‍යාලෙ මං ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙන්නේ බදු ගෙවන අයගේ මුදලින්. The taxpayer has paid for my education. Same with doctors, same with engineers. Right? So after getting that education from the people of Sri Lanka, I might be legally free to leave. නීතිමය වශයෙන් මට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙන රටකට. But morally, right? Should I leave the country? So that is about duties, wagakim. What kind of duties do we have? Then we briefly talked about how citizenship developed in Sri Lanka, 1931, 1948. We also talked about the issues faced by Tamils of recent Indian origin, the Sinhala youth who fought against the state, and also about the Tamil demand for equal rights. And then finally, we asked ourselves, coming to our topic, do women have equal rights in Sri Lanka? දැන් හැමෝම කිව්වේ නීතිය ඉස්සරහා අපිට අයිතිවාසිකම් තියෙනවා, but practically, right, we may not have equal rights. Thank you, Susie. So I hope everyone feels refreshed after the break. So I'm going to put up the 4 questions that we are going to discuss on the whiteboard, so that might be easier for you. Okay. So take some time to think about it. You can just make a rough note of this in your notes. We are now going to, we first talked about citizenship. Now we are going to talk about women's rights in Sri Lanka. So before we talk about women's rights, again, we have to talk about the broader concept. පොදු සංකල්පය ගැන අපි සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඉන්නවා. And that is human rights. සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ මානව හිමිකම් කියලා. Then we have to identify the laws relevant. දැන් අපි constitution එක ගැන කතා කරා. එතනින් එහාට are there any other laws? Then we will talk specifically about rights of women. And then ask whether they are recognized in Sri Lanka. Then finally, come back to some of the issues we have already discussed. What are the human rights related issues that women in Sri Lanka face? And I'm sure all of you have different questions. A common question people have is, why do we only talk about women's rights? Why don't we talk about rights of men? And if you like, and if we have time, we can touch on that too. Okay. Right. So let me start with one question, and I'm going to ask each center to give me a response. What are human rights? මානව හිමිකම් කියන්නේ මොනවද? Shall we start with Jayala? What are human rights?
Jala Center, Wendy teacher is not there. Please, you can unmute yourself. Nilma, Oshadi. Jala, we're waiting for your answer. Yeah, come.
Again, remember there are no right or wrong answers, only answers.
Sorry, Puta, I didn't hear your answer. Could you please come to the front, darling? Who is that? Was that Wendy teacher? Oh, she was trying to explain the question to you. Okay. Yeah. I think, you could even give the answer in Sinhala if you're struggling with the language. That's fine. That's okay. Don't worry.
When we living in country, we need freedom to live.
Good. And that is a human right.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Nita. Batiklo, any other answer? What are human rights? Do you want to add to that? Yes. Tell me your name as well, please.
My name is Kilian.
Yes.
Human rights are rights inherent in all human beings, regardless of race, gender, nationality, ethnicity, languages, and also religion and any other things. And we have lots of freedom to express our expressions and our own ideas. And those are lots of things to describe and our personal human rights.
Excellent answer. Do you have more?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So he used a lot of ideas. I'm only going to touch on 2. Inherent, he said, they are inherent rights. Now this is a big word. Probably you have not come across this before. What does this mean, right? Then he also said we have rights which we can enjoy without discrimination. Okay, discrimination is in Sinhala it's වෙනස් කොට සැලකීම. Susie, what's the Tamil word for that?
You put me on the spot. Okay. I am sorry, I don't know the Tamil word, but I can explain it to you in Tamil.
Yes, maybe we do
Okay.
that.
So, Batiklo, discrimination சொல்றது நாங்க ஆனா பெண்ணா மதம் மொழி அதெல்லாம் பார்க்காம எல்லாத்துக்கும் I mean discrimination அது பார்த்துட்டு அவங்க எங்களோட என்ன சொல்றது இன்டராக்ட் பண்றதுக்கு. Gauri teacher, I am sure you'll be able to help me there with the word discrimination. Batiklo, did you get the concept? Did you understand what it is? Yeah? Okay, thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, right? Because that's important to understand. So when we say inherent rights is a big term we use for actually a very simple idea that we all recognize. And that is the following. We have human rights not because we have a birth certificate, not because we are educated, not because we are good people, not because we have a family, right? It's not because of any reason. Human rights are part of us because we are born into the human family or the human race, because we are humans. සිංහලෙන් කියනවනම් අපි මනුෂ්‍ය අපේ මනුෂ්‍යකම නිසාම අපිට ලැබෙන දෙයක් තමයි මේ මානව හිමිකම් කියන්නේ. මනුෂ්‍යත්වයේ මත පදනම් වෙච්ච සංකල්පයක්. වෙන කිසිම සංකල්පයක් මත මේක යැපෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? Susie, do you mind explaining that, please?
Sorry, Nagyak, I was trying to find the word for discrimination.
Right.
We understood.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. So, this is very important to understand. In the first hour, I said citizenship comes from the law. Human rights don't come from the law. Human rights comes before the law. Okay? So, we say that a constitution is good or bad depending on how it protects our human rights. We decide whether a constitution is good or bad depending on how it protects our human rights. Right? සිංහලෙන් කියනවා නම් ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් හොඳද නැද්ද කියන එක අපි තීරණය කරන්නේ ඒකේ මානව හිමිකම් ආරක්ෂා වෙන විදිහට. Right? So discrimination වෙනස් කොට සැලකීම is a prohibition. ඒක තහනම්. You are not supposed to discriminate people on several grounds that were already mentioned. Race, religion, citizenship. No, let's not take citizenship. Let's say gender. We'll just take these 3. Caste is another important one. The government or the state can't treat us differently or discriminate based on any of these grounds. Okay? Now, who recognizes human rights? කවුද මේ මානව හිමිකම් ආරක්ෂා කරන වගකීම ගන්න? Who has the responsibility to protect human rights? Let's come back to Jayala. What do you think is the answer? Who has the responsibility to protect human rights?
Humans.
One. Is it Janaka who looks like he has the answer? I may be wrong with your name.
I think Prashant voiced out the answer. Prashant, again, please.
Humans have the right to protect the human rights.
Yes, but there's another answer. You're right, Prashant, but there's another answer. What's that answer? Anyone from any other center? Sorry, Sajani?
Human Rights Commission.
Okay, good. Any other answer? The police? Isn't it? Good. So, 2 points to remember. Human rights, දැන් මම ආයෙ ලොකු වචනයක් දෙන්න යන්නේ. Human rights are universal. Everyone in the world has certain human rights. Universal කියන එකෙන් අපි කියන්නේ විශ්වීයයි, the whole world, right? So human rights are available to the whole world. All human beings, whether you live in Fiji or Sri Lanka or Japan or Greenland, we recognize that we have human rights. Later we will talk about the UN, United Nations. But we recognize it. But the responsibility, who has the responsibility to protect our rights? Each government. Okay, in each country, every government has the responsibility to protect our human rights, and as Prashant mentioned, in some cases, individuals too.
Tell your answer then.
Does anyone have a question or a comment?
No, ma'am. Actually, all of us have recognized and the human rights. All the authorities, institutions, and public government service centers. Everyone has responsibility to give respect to the human rights.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. So when I say government here, I include a lot of institutions. But what is common to all of them, to all these institutions, is that they are part of the state. Right? Okay, so that's where the responsibility is. And I said in some cases individuals, if we have time, we will talk about it. Okay, the last point on this, what are human rights and why we recognize them? Where can we find human rights? Where can we find human rights? I'll give you the answer because otherwise we will not be managing our time well. There are, the easiest answer is international treaties. And they are adopted by the United Nations. The other important answer is constitutions, vyavastha. Constitutions of different countries. And then laws. There are more answers, but I'm giving you 3 important places where we can find our human rights written down. So we already looked at the Sri Lankan constitution. And I showed you that chapter 3 recognizes fundamental rights. But there are treaties. Treaties කියලා අපි කියන්නේ agreements that the United Nations adopts. මේ treaties අත්සන් කරන්නේ කවුද? States, right? Countries go and sign these treaties and they recognize those human rights. සමහරක් වෙලාවට නීතිවලත් අපේ මානව හිමිකම් පිළි අරගෙන තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. So when you have time, I know young people spend a lot of time on the internet. Go to the web page of the United Nations. You can read about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, right? It's a lot that we can learn about human rights, and that information is available online for you. මානව හිමිකම් පිළිබඳ විශ්ව ප්‍රකාශය UDHR. Okay. Right. So I think I have answered the second question to some extent. What are the laws for human rights? ලංකාවේ ගත්තහම constitution is the main thing, but ඊට අමතරව we have other laws, right? So I will mention one more important point. Like මානව හිමිකම් කියන දේ, human rights are the responsibility of the state, right? රජයේ වගකීම. So the government can't pass a law to violate our human rights. රජයට නීතියක් මේ පනවල අපේ මානව හිමිකම් උල්ලංඝනය කරන්න බැහැ. ඒක පිළිගත් එක මේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයට විරෝධී. It's against democracy. Now we didn't talk about democracy at all so far. Okay, but citizenship is a big part of democracy, ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය. Okay. So now I'm giving you a lot of big ideas, but I want to keep this simple. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll give each center time now. If any of you have any questions, or if something that I have said is not clear, you can ask me and I'll explain it again. Let's start with Ambilipitiya. Do you all have any questions? You can ask me in both languages. No?
I got a question regarding to here. I'm Malwalarachi.
Yes, Mr. Malwaj.
The thing that you pointed out here, if it is actually so, then in our country, we know that we cannot go to the court against the president. Then, if the human rights of the violated by the presidents, how can we justify that?
Yeah, very good question. Let me take some of this off to answer the question, right? All right. Now, under our constitution, 1978, no one can take the president to court while the president is in office. Civil නීතියක් නඩුවක් කරන්නත් බෑ, criminal නඩුවක් කරන්නත් බෑ, අපරාධ නීතියක් බෑ. So under no reason can you take the president to court. Okay? But our Supreme Court said if the president makes a illegal order, unlawful decision, නීතියට විරෝධී තීරණයක් ගත්තොත් ජනාධිපති වෙන රජයේ සේවකයෙක්, any other government servant, if they implement that order, දැන් හිතමුකෝ මම ජනාධිපති ඊපස්සේ මම කියනවා අද දවස තුල today no one can use social media. I make that decision, right? It's an illegal decision. You can't just ban social media like that. Let's say Susie is the person responsible for managing the internet in Sri Lanka. So she shuts down social media for the day. Now, under the 1978 Constitution, no one can take me to court because I am the president. But they could take Susie to court because she has acted on a illegal order. නීති විරෝධී තීරණයක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරපු නිසා සූසිට විරුද්ධව නඩු කියන්න පුළුවන්. Okay? Then 19th amendment 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනය. දැන් මේ දවස්වල ගොඩක් කතා වෙනවා. 2015 made a very important change. ලොකු වෙනස්කමක් සිදු වුණා, right? This is to do with Article 35. 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනයෙන් කිව්වා ජනාධිපති විසින් by the president, if the fundamental rights are violated, you can go to court. Right? They said under the 19th amendment, if your fundamental rights are violated by the president, you can go to Supreme Court. Then with the 20th amendment, they tried to change this, but they couldn't. Supreme Court said you can't change this now. Make a වෙනස් කරනවා නම් ජනමත විචාරණයකට යන්න ඕන. If you are going to change what was introduced in 2015, you have to have a referendum. So even with the 20th amendment, the same rule applies today. So Mr. Mallavarachi, after 2015, if the president violates your fundamental rights, you can go to Supreme Court. Remember 2018, right? There was a big constitutional issue. October to December, I don't know if you remember. Prime Minister Wickramasinghe was removed and former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was appointed. Then they went to court. එතනදි කරේ මේක පාවිච්චි කරන එක. People used this and took the president to court. Okay? Now you can understand how law operates a little bit. You might understand this or you may not, but you can see how this works. Good. Any other questions in Amblypitiya? Okay. Any questions in Jayala? Prashant, do you have any questions?
No, Miss, all here. Thank you.
Okay, good. What about Batikla? Okay, so very quickly, we all have human rights, not because we have earned it. We have human rights because we are part of the human race. Okay? Human rights are inherent and we can't be treated in different ways. Discrimination is prohibited. Everyone in the world has human rights. Human rights are universal. And they are recognized in international treaties by the United Nations. Who has the responsibility to protect rights, human rights? Each government. Okay? So international treaties, constitutions, laws recognize our human rights. So in Sri Lanka, our constitution recognizes citizenship. It also recognizes our fundamental rights. Okay, now we are getting to the main question and we are, as I suspected, behind time. Okay. Oops. What are women's rights? Now, again, this is a long story, but let's try to keep it straightforward. In many parts of the world, for different reasons, women have been considered what we call second-class citizens, right? Treated less than men. So they couldn't own property. ඉඩම් අයිතියක් තියාගන්න බැරි වුණා කාන්තාවන්ට. Women couldn't vote. In some countries, even today, women can't drive a vehicle. For a long time, women couldn't be doctors, women couldn't be lawyers or engineers, right? So women were treated different from men. One of the main reasons for that was women are the ones who gave birth to children. So the main role for women was to bear children and raise children. Okay, now there's a lot to be said about it. We don't have time, but I will just tell you a few things. When we talk about women's rights, there are at least 3 developments. One is women's right to vote. Second is women's equality at work. And third, women's equality everywhere. Okay. So in 1920s and even before that, women in England, women in Sri Lanka, women in Japan, lots of women got into groups and said, look, you have to give us the right to vote. Because if you don't give us the right to vote, you won't give us the laws that we need. මොකද නීතිය ඉදිරියේ before the law, women had no rights. They couldn't do anything. They had to stay at home. Okay? So they said, give us the right to vote, because we know without having the right to vote, we can't make you change the law. So from 1920s onwards, governments said, okay, we will allow women to vote. And Sri Lanka is very special, because when Sri Lanka gave the right to vote, they gave it to men and women. Then women's equality at work, 1970s, 1960s, 70s. So women were working in factories for a very long time. Women were working in farms, in paddy fields for a very long time. But when they started working in factories, and even today, men get more money than women. If a working woman in a factory was going to have a baby, she lost her job. Right? That's it. You just had to go home. You can't come back to work. So women couldn't work. And if women can't work, they can't earn money. If you can't earn money, what happens to you? Particular, what happens to you? What if women can't earn money? What do they end up having to do?
We depend on our husband.
On others.
We can't afford anything, so we depend on others.
So then they say, oh, you have to get married, and then you had to look after your husband, look after your children. You can't go to work. Even if you go to work, you will get less money, and as soon as you get pregnant, you will have to come back home anyway. Then you spend your rest of your life based on a very limited way of living, decided by others, not by you. No financial independence. Okay, so today I'm not going into that. Even today in some parts of Sri Lanka, if a woman wants to open her bank account, she needs a written approval from her husband. Right? There are women who get married, but the law doesn't allow them to sign their marriage certificate, marriage registration. So not equal before the law. So that's why I said, law sometimes violates our human rights. So men fought with them and said, no, you have to treat us equally at work. You have to allow us to do the same jobs that men do, whether it's to be pilots, whether it's to be police officers, whether it's to be engineers, scientists. We are also good. Because just because we are women doesn't mean we can't do what men do. So that was in the 60s and the 70s. And then government said, okay, we won't stop women by law from equality at work. After that, from the 1990s onwards, women's rights in the world have become even better. So today we talk about sexual harassment. We talk about domestic violence, right? We talk about dignity of labor. I'll explain these things in a little bit. Okay, but now if we take Sri Lanka, no, let me not do that. So after 1960s, 70s, governments also realized that they have to give maternity leave. What is maternity leave? If you're pregnant and if you're going to have a child, the state says, okay, you will get, now in Sri Lanka, 81 weeks. You can stay at home. You will get your salary, but you're not working. Huh? You get paid leave to stay at home and look after your children. That was a big step, because now we are saying that every employer has to give that leave. If you don't give that leave, you are violating the law. So after they finish the 81 weeks, they can come back to work. And you have to give them the same job. Right? So I'll use the same example. Now, so banks, airlines, all these places had to give maternity leave. Do you think employers like this? Right? Imagine a woman who has 2 children, 3 children. Imagine a woman who has, say, 2018, she has a child. Then she goes on maternity leave. 2020, she has a second child. She goes on maternity leave. You have to pay again. 2022, she has another child. Again, you have to give her maternity leave. Will employers like this? Right? They won't. So they tried different tricks. They said, okay, especially in the banking sector, I'm told, at the interview level itself, they said they prefer to choose men. Why? Men don't need maternity leave. Right? You're saving money. And when a person goes on leave, your work gets disrupted, right? Then when it came to becoming the head of a company, CEO, right, holding important positions, they said women are always thinking about their children. They have to cook. They have family issues. They have to go back home quickly. So always better to appoint a man as a head of the company. Because they can work till 12 o'clock. They can go out alone. You don't have to worry about them. They are definitely not going on maternity leave. So even today, women's equality at work is a challenge. So even if the law doesn't stop women from working, each company can use different tactics to prevent women from having equal opportunities. Okay. I'll mention one last point. අවසානයේ මේක කියන්නේ ඊට පස්සේ අපි ඊළඟ point එකට යමු. Women said, look, when you give leave only to the mother, when you have children, people think that only the mother has responsibilities towards the child. Okay. So today in several countries, they give what they call parental leave, not maternity leave. ඒකේ මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? Mother or father can take leave when the mother has a child. Okay. And in places like Sweden, the father has to take leave. It's compulsory for the father to take leave. So you're changing the idea that only the mother has responsibilities towards a baby. The father also has responsibilities. So something for you to think about, okay? So when you give parental leave, not maternity leave, you're saying men or women have to be supported to go and look after their family when they have a baby, not just the woman. එහෙම කරපුවාම වෙන්නේ employers don't think that women are the problem. Others, they're always focusing on women and discriminating on them because they have to go on maternity leave. Now, in other parts of the world, they're saying it's not just a woman, even a man would have to take leave. Okay, so I'm now saying a lot, but this is the important part. I'll give you time for questions. Beyond that, we now talk about very important concepts. So earlier, women couldn't go to school, couldn't vote, couldn't work. Then from the 50s onwards, they can go and work wherever they would like to. And there is leave that will allow them to work and be a mother, right? And get the same salary. But that is still not enough. Women, I mean, all the women in the 3 centers will know, and all the men will know this as well. Let's say a banker has to get into a bus and travel 12 kilometers every day. Let's say if you're traveling from Jayala to Colombo, I don't know how many kilometers that is. What is the woman's experience in public transport? Anyone? Let's see if a man will answer. We don't want to put women on the spot. Quickly, we don't have much time.
Gentlemen from the 3 centers.
ප්‍රශ්නේ පැහැදිලිද? පැහැදිලි නැත්නම් කියන්න.
Batticlo, Drala, and Ripitia.
Actually, they may have sexual harassments when they go to buy public transports. And also there's a lack of documentation on women in Sri Lanka.
Correct. Very good. So whether a woman is wearing a sari, a burqa, a tight skirt, pants, whatever she's wearing, whatever her age, if she's going by public transport, there's a very high likelihood of a woman being targeted sexually. That is what we mean by sexual harassment. Either saying words, saying things about, comments about her dress, comments about how she looks, sometimes saying bad words to her. Then it gets worse. It can be physical, right? So imagine a woman's situation. Every day, morning and evening, and as somebody said earlier, if she travels after a certain time, it becomes very risky. Then she can't travel by bus. She has to ask somebody else to come and travel with her in the bus, or she has to take a 3-wheeler, but again, she has to make sure she knows the 3-wheeler driver. Right? Is it easy for her to go to work? It's not. What happens to her performance at work? It's affected. So this is public transport. Now there is a lot of evidence to show that at work, women have say the same problem. Because men at work trouble them. Sometimes women at work trouble women. They say, oh, your dress is too short. You're wearing sleeveless today. You shouldn't wear sleeveless. Right? You're too friendly with this person. Always trying to tell women what to do, what not to do, or to take advantage of them. Then at the home, there can be domestic violence. Again, it can be verbal, it can be physical, it can be psychological, emotional, right? So, for instance, if a woman goes out with her friends, let's say she a mother of two, her school friends are getting together and she wants to go and meet them. When she comes back, her husband will have a long face and say, you're going out of the house all the time, the house is neglected, and keep saying that each time she tries to go out. What happens to her eventually? There's a lot of pressure on her to not go out, right? So it can be emotional, psychological, physical, it can be verbal. Now the good thing is, in international law, Sri Lankan law, right, we are recognizing this as a problem and trying to give a legal framework, Naitika Pratipadana, to address these problems. It's very difficult, extremely difficult to stop domestic violence, extremely difficult to stop the sexual harassment, right? But as the Batiklo Center said, these are day-to-day problems that women face, whether at home, whether at work, whether in public places. Okay, right. Now, yeah, maybe I should leave now, ask you for questions. Let's start with Jael. Any questions? Anything you want to ask me? Don't, I hope you're not feeling embarrassed to ask questions. Ambilipitiya? Batiklo? Okay, 2 points and then we will change. I'm not going to be talking because I talked for a long time. One is there's an international convention, right? I'll show it to you. Can you see this? Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Diga nama. This is the international convention that recognizes women's rights. Okay, we don't have time to go through this, but you can again, don't try to read this. You will feel very discouraged because the English is a little bit too complicated. Look for UN videos on the convention and you can learn a little bit about it. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. ලංකාවත් මේක අත්සන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. Sri Lanka is also party to this convention. Okay. Then the other point is this, and this is very important, right? Now, Why do we talk about citizenship and women's rights? So I explained to you, if a woman can vote, if a woman can work, if she has rights at home, then she can be a citizen. She is free to be a citizen. Enjoy her expression, enjoy her freedom of movement. Okay? So women need equality at home, at work, at school, in the bus, if she is to be a free citizen. That's the first point. Now the last point. Make a product, lots of legal points on this, but you have to understand this. Otherwise, your knowledge is not useful. Now Sri Lanka. Generally, no laws discriminating against women. Okay, generally. It's a issue with patriarchal attitudes. පීතෘමූලික සමාජය කියලා අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ. Susie, do you think you can translate that into Tamil? Male dominated.
Give me a second, Aki. Let me find the word and then
Yes.
give it to
You
them.
can maybe place it in the chat even. Okay, so it's a male dominated society. That's the main problem. But there are certain laws which discriminate against women. Anyone wants to, can anyone tell us what these laws are in Sri Lanka? Any center? Anyone? Very quickly. Please remind me of your name.
Gideon.
Gideon. Yes.
Actually, in my opinion, I can say women's rights are the fundamental human right that were enshrined by United Nations for human beings. There is a lack of documentation on women in Sri Lanka, particularly on issues of sexual violence, as well as many incidents of rapes, domestic violence, and sexual harassment in the workplace go unreported.
Yeah. Can I pause you for a minute? There's a call I've been waiting for. Susie, is that okay? 2 minutes, please. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So, Batiklo, I have put the word for patriarchal attitude on the chat. Did you get it? Thank you.
Sorry. Because of the fuel shortage, some deliveries get delayed. So I had to confirm this. I had to take the call.
No problems.
Please continue.
So I can say there are several laws that give women the power to fight advertises such as discrimination, harassment, violence, and abuse as well.
Right, but okay, good. Are there any specific laws in Sri Lanka that that discriminate against women that you can think of? You're right. You gave a good description about the problem of women's rights in Sri Lanka. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let me give you the answer. We have what we call personal laws. Don't worry if you can't understand these terms. Laws that relate to marriage, divorce, etc. Okay. Now, I'm not going to explain to you which law applies to whom, but we have Kandyan law, Muslim law, and Tesa Walamai law. and we have the general law. So general law will apply to anyone who does not coming under Tesawalame law, Muslim law or Canadian. Right? We are not going to talk about any details, but these three are very interesting from a women's rights point of view. Actually, all four. Right? Take the example of divorce. Under the general law, most of us are under the general law. I am under the general law. If you want to get divorced, you have to say that your partner has done something wrong. He has committed adultery, had another partner, he has been violent. You have to show that that person has done something wrong, and that's why you want to divorce. But under Canadian law, you can go to court and say, we just want to divorce. You don't have to say that one person has done something wrong. Okay. Now, under Muslim law, so under Canadian law, Tesawalame law, general law, you have to be 18 or above to get married. Under Muslim law, there is no minimum age for marriage. But beyond that, particularly in Tesawalame law and Muslim law, there are some provisions, some aspects which don't treat women equally. So like I said, women under Muslim law, when they get married, don't sign the marriage register. If there is a complaint about the marriage, it has to go to a Qazi court. That's a court governed by Muslim law. Only then that court can only have male Muslim judges. You can't have lawyers in that court. Right? These are just examples. Under Tesawalame law, if you're a married woman and you own property, you can't sell your property without your husband giving you written permission to sell your property. You own the property, but after you get married, your husband has to give you written permission to sell your property. And if your husband refuses to give you permission, you have to go to court and ask for permission. So even today in Sri Lanka, these laws apply. And when women say, please change these laws, people in parliament, people outside parliament say, this is our culture. We can't change these laws. Okay? But I hope you can see that these laws don't respect women's right to equality. Right. Now we are going into a time of case studies. But before that, do you have questions about anything we've discussed so far? Any of the centers? So women and citizenship, right? Several points to this. For women, to be citizens, you have to have equality. To be citizens, you must have equality. For citizens, women's equality should matter. Okay. For us as citizens, women's equality should matter. They are over 50% of Sri Lanka's population, about 51%. So if 51% of the population is having trouble getting to work, having trouble at work, having trouble at home, it's something that we should all be thinking about and trying to do something about. Okay. So I'll give you one last example, right? I'm going to ask Jael to give me an answer. What's the percentage of women in parliament? What has been the highest percentage? In Sri Lanka, from the time we had a parliament, 1931 onwards. What's the highest percentage? Now, women are over 50%. Very quickly. Give me a percentage. Don't worry about it.
Jala Center, yes, anyone? Okay, Rushta, can we have a percentage, Pita? I can't see Rushta, but I know she's in the class.
You'll have to come up to the seat and give the answer. We can't hear the answer.
6%.
Yes, Rushta.
30, okay.
60%.
40%. Thank you. 14. 40. So Batiklo says 40. Ambilipitia? You have to give a percentage.
5%.
5%. So Ambilipitia wins. Never been higher than 12%. Generally been about 6%. Now you can see how serious this problem is, right? Women are not, we have the right to vote. Like somebody said, we have the rights, but we are unable to enjoy it. Voters don't recognize women and vote for them. Political parties don't want to encourage women to get into politics. And then when women are not in parliament, how can we address women's issues? Right? And then let me show you, I don't have statistics, but think about foreign earnings. Somebody started this conversation early on. Plantations, garment industry. What's the other source of dollars for Sri Lanka?
Foreign employment.
Yeah, that's right. Foreign employment. What's common to all three? Women drive it at the lowest level, not at the highest level. Whether it's unskilled foreign employment, whether it's stitching clothes in the garment industry, whether it's plucking tea, it's women. And as, sorry?
Tourism industry.
Tourism, but so far the leading ones that bring us foreign earnings from overseas are these. Tourism industry, I don't know about women and men's participation, but maybe you should find out about that, right?
Garment. It's also a garment. Garment.
So in all three, there are studies to show that women don't have what I said, dignity of labor. Their salary is very low, the conditions are very hard. The outer conditions, external conditions are even harder, especially in the garment industry and foreign employment. Well, also plantations. And they are not in parliament. So, women's citizenship is a real challenge in Sri Lanka. Not a positive story in that sense, but I think there is, well, I think the younger generation might be able to change this because there is more interest in trying to respect women as equals, I think. Okay, good. So I'm going to give you two incidents to discuss. Go in your groups, discuss these two incidents, and I'm going to ask you, like earlier, to come back and explain your answer. So first one, the world's first prime minister and the world's first woman prime minister, fourth woman president is from Sri Lanka. You know who they are. Does this mean women have equality? Okay. This is from a recent incident. Mother of 2 children threw one child into a river. Body discovered yesterday. Mother tried to kill herself. Failed. Mother currently in remand custody. Now in the second, both examples, I haven't given you details. I haven't given you the political details. I haven't given you the social details. Okay, let me add a third one. Was it a 6-year-old child who was murdered when she went to the shop? 6 or 5 years? Or 7? Young child, let's say young child. Goes to local shop, abducted, attempted, abducted. I won't. So there's a confession. I don't want to go into that. Murdered. Okay, now it's 11:21. You can take time till 11:35. Right? I want you to have a general discussion about these incidents. What do these incidents teach you about women's rights and citizenship? So the question is very broad. මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ අවස්ථා තුනෙන් කාන්තාවන්ගේ අයිතිවාසිකම් සහ පුරවැසිභාවය ගැන අපිට මොනවද ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන්. Incidents to women's rights, citizenship in Sri Lanka. So you can have a broad discussion, right? It may be related to what we discussed. It could be other matters. It doesn't matter. At 11:35, I will ask you to each center at least 2 groups to say 3 points. 3 points as answers. I am here, so if anyone wants to ask a question, you can always come to your hot seat and ask me. Before we start, any clarifying questions? Maybe you need to do a Tamil translation, Susie, I don't know.
Matiklo? Matiklo, are you there? Yes? Okay, yes. So you've got the 3 scenarios on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Right, and there is a question. In the question, நீங்க 3 instances பார்த்து இதுல நாங்க இன்னைக்கு டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுவோம் தானே citizenship women's rights பத்தி. உங்களுக்கு இந்த 3 சிச்சுவேஷன்ஸ்ல என்ன விளங்குது? ஸ்ரீலங்கா பத்தி விமென்ஸ் ரைட்ஸும் சிட்டிசன்ஷிப் எடுத்தோம்னா என்ன விளங்குது? ஸ்ரீலங்காக்குள்ள எப்படி என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு என்ன விளங்குது? அட்லீஸ்ட் 3 பாயிண்ட்ஸ். சரியா? 2 குரூப்ஸ் வந்து கதைக்கணும். அட்லீஸ்ட் 3 பாயிண்ட்ஸ் 3 பாயிண்ட்ஸ் சொல்லணும். All right. Do you need any other clarification, Blatiklo? Where dachi clarify mananuma? Okay.
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you can start now. Thanks.
Now should I start?
Ambidipiti would like to start?
No.
Good. So just 1 minute. I think Batikro, you need to mute your mic, please. We'll get Ambidipiti to go first.
Sorry, ma'am.
That's okay.
Hello, madam. My
Yes.
name is Sri. I like speaking Sinhala.
Yeah.
Madam, මේ කතාව ගත්තම මේක මේ ලොකු දිග ගම කතාවක්. මොකද මේ අපේ රටේ ඉතිහාසයෙන් ගම මේක මේ පෙරදි ආයෙත් මේ සිද්ධි එකම වෙනවා. මේක නැවතීමක් නෑ. නමුත් අපි හරි ආඩම්බරෙන් කතා කරනවා කාන්තා අයිතිවාසිකම් ගැන, කාන්තාවට ගෞරව කරන්න කියලා. මේ දේවල් අපේ ආගමත් එක්කත් සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් තාමත් මේ සිද්ධි නැවත නැවතත් වෙනවා. මේක අම්මා විසින්ම තමන්ගේ ළමයාව ගඟට දාන්න හිතන එක කොච්චර මේ කාන්තාව අසරණ වෙලා තියෙනවද කියන තැන ඒක ගොඩක් අමාරුයි. ඇත්තටම ඒ සිද්ධිය අපිට අපි ඒක අත්දැකීම් ගන්න තාක්කල් අපි ඒක විවිධ විදිහට නිර්වචනය කරනවා. නමුත් මේ සිද්ධියට ලක් වෙච්ච කෙනාම තමයි මේ අත්දැකීම දන්නේ. නමුත් අපි හැමෝම වගේ කියන්න ඕනේ ඒ කාන්තාව ඒ තැනටපත් වීම ගැන. එතකොට මේ සිද්ධිය මීට කලින් මේ ළඟදී මේ සිද්ධිය වුණාට මීට කලින් මේ වගේම සිද්ධියක් කලුතර ගඟට ළමෙක් දාන විදිහට මේක සිද්ධ වුණා. ඒ වගේම ගත්තම අපේ කුංචි ළමෙක් දූෂණයකට ලක් වෙන එක ඒ සිද්ධියම මීට කලින් සේයා කියන කුංචි නංගිට මේ දේ වුණා. නමුත් අපි දන්නේ මේ දේවල් අපි මේව දන්නේ ජනමාධ්‍ය ඔස්සේ මේ දේවල් ජනප්‍රිය වුණාට පස්සේ. නමුත් අපේ ගම්වල අපේ නගරවල අපේ ඉස්කෝලවල මේ ගමේ පවුල ඇතුලේ මේ වගේ දේවල් කොච්චර තියෙන්න පුළුවන්ද අපි නොදැනුවත්. නමුත් අපි තාමත් කතා කරනවා කාන්තා අයිතිවාසිකම් ගැන. නමුත් අපේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ආකල්පවලට හිත ඇතුළට මේ දේවල් හිනා බහැලා නැහැ කියලා මට හිතෙනවා. අපි නමුත් උඩින් කතා කරනවා මේ දේවල් ගැන. ඇත්තටම අපි ගරු කරනවාද අපේ අම්මා දැන් මේ දේවල් ගැන අපි අම්මට ඇත්තටම ගරු කරනවා නම් පාරේ කාන්තාවකට බස් එක යන කාන්තාවකට හිරිහැර කරන්න හිතනවා. අපේ නංගිට වගේ අපි ආදරය කරනවා නම් අපේ අම්මා විදියට ඒකේ ගෑනු ළමයාව දකිනවා නම් වෙනත් වචන වලින් ඒ ගෑනු ළමයාට ආමන්ත්‍රණය කරන්න, නනින්න, විහිළු කරන්න, සමච්චලයට ලක් කරන්න මේ දේවල් හිතනවාද කියන තැන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා.
Very good. Thank you very much. Susie, do you want to translate?
I'll try to. So thank you so much for that, Ambidipiti. Batiklo, just to rephrase what was shared, is that this is something, sorry, Tamil. இது வந்து நாங்க நிறைய கதைச்சு இருக்கோம். நம்ம பாஸ்ட் எடுத்தோம்னா நாங்க இதை பத்தி நிறைய கதைச்சு இருக்கோம் தானே. விமென்ஸ் ரைட்ஸ் பத்தி, ரைட்ஸ் இல்ல அந்த சொல்ற விஷயம் நாங்க நிறைய கதைச்சிருக்கோம். ஆனா இது வந்து ஒரு ஐடியாவா மட்டும்தான் இருக்கு. ஏன்னா உதாரணத்துக்கு இந்த அம்மா அவங்களோட புள்ளைய அவங்க வீசுற அளவுக்கு வந்து இருக்காங்கன்னா இதுக்கு வந்து ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி கூடுதலையா நாங்களும் எடுக்கணும், சொசைட்டியா நாங்க எடுக்கணும். ஏன்னா அந்த நிலைமைக்கு நாங்க ஆக்களை போட்டு அடுத்தது அந்த சின்ன குழந்தை என்ன சொல்றது அந்த கிட்னாப் பண்ணி அந்த குழந்தை மர்டர் பண்ணதுக்கு அங்கேயும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா இது வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ் இல்ல, இதுக்கு முன்னாடி இப்படி இன்ஸ்டன்சஸ் நடந்திருக்கு. ஆனா நாங்க இதை பத்தி கதைக்கிறோம் தவிர கதைக்கிறதோட நாங்க நிப்பாட்டி இருக்கோம். அதனாலதான் இது கண்டினியூ ஆகுது. அந்த என்ன சொல்ற அந்த ஆம்பிளிபிட்டிய சகோதரி சொன்னது விஷயம் வந்து நாங்க உண்மைக்கு நம்ம அம்மா மாதிரி இல்லாட்டி தங்கச்சி மாதிரி மத்த கேர்ள்ஸ் நாங்க பார்த்தோம்னா எங்களுக்கு கஷ்டமா இருக்கும். போறவங்களுக்கு என்ன சொல்ற அந்த ஈவ்டீசிங்னு சொல்லுவோம் தானே, தப்பான வார்த்தை பாவிக்கிறது, அவங்க என்ன உடுத்துறாங்கன்னு அதை பத்தி கமெண்ட் அடிக்கிறது, இல்லாட்டி அவங்க எப்படி இருக்காங்கன்னு அதை பத்தி கதைக்கும் போது நாங்க நம்ம அம்மா இல்லாட்டி நம்ம சகோதரங்களா அங்க பார்த்தோம்னா நம்மளுக்கு உண்மைக்கு அது செய்யலாம். சோ இந்த ஐடியா பத்தி நாங்க கதைக்கிறோம் தவிர இதுக்கு ஒரு சொல்யூஷனா நாங்க எதுவும் செய்ய இல்லைன்னு தான் அவங்க சொன்னாங்க. சோ எஸ்.
Thank you. තව එක group එකකින් අපිට පිළිතුරු ගන්න පුළුවන්. One more group from Emily Pittier, please. Maybe on the first case study.
Well, when we talk about the first women prime minister,
yes,
her name is Mrs. Sirimao Bandaranaike. Let me explain in Sinhala. එතකොට අපි ඒගොල්ලෝගේ පත්වීම ගැන කතා කරොත් ඒගොල්ලොන්ට ඒ තැන ලැබුණේ එයාගේ ස්වාමි පුරුෂයා ඝාතනය කිරීමෙන් පසුව වගේ දේවල් වලින් එයාලගේ තැන ලැබුණේ. එතකොට චන්ද්‍රිකා බණ්ඩාරනායක හතරවෙනි ජනාධිපති තුමියත් එහෙමයි. එයා සමහර අයට පරම්පරාවෙන් ඒ දේ ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. සමහර අයට එහෙම නැත්නම් අනුකම්පාව මත ඒගොල්ලොන්ට ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ දේවල්.
Yes, thank you. Shall I just say that I think I can say it in English and we can manage that. So I have heard particularly politicians talk about how Sri Lanka has advanced in women's rights because the first woman prime minister is in the world is from Sri Lanka, and also the 4th woman president. But as she rightly pointed out, the first woman prime minister and the 4th woman president came to that position because of 2 reasons. One is their family name, and they are especially in the first case, definitely to do with her husband's assassination. So it's really, if they were not from those families, or if they were not married to the people they were married to, or had the father that the President Bandaranaike had, I think we can all see that they wouldn't have come to the positions that they did. So actually, this is not an example for women's rights. It's an example of the absence of women's equality. Okay? So it's very important to understand that. Right, so let's go to Jaela. Sorry, let's go to Batiklo since you all are ready.
Freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom from torture or cruel, right to equality before the law and the equal protection of the law. Citizenship goes beyond a relationship between the citizen and the state. It extends to a range of other social institutions such as family, civil society, organization. So all the laws are in only the books as written, but they don't have a physical life.
Very good answer. Now, can you also use that to tell us a bit about these case studies? Comment on the case studies. Again, you can speak in any language. Not French. I don't understand French or German.
பிரைம் மினிஸ்டரா இருந்தாலும் பிரசிடென்டா இருந்தாலும் இப்பத்திய காலகட்டத்திலயோ சரி முதல் காலகட்டத்திலயோ சரி கேர்ள்ஸுக்கான ஃப்ரீடம் வந்து கொடுக்கப்படல. பட் அந்த என்ன சொல்ற அந்த மதர் வந்து ஒரு புள்ளைய தூக்கி ரிவர்ல எரியறவா இருந்தா அதுக்கு ஏதோ ஒரு டார்ச்சரோ ஏதோ ஒன்று இருந்திருக்கும். இருக்காம ஒரு பிள்ளைய வந்து தாய் தூக்கறிய வேண்டிய அவசியம் அங்க அந்த இடத்துல இல்ல. அடுத்தது வந்து பெண்களை சைல்ட் ஹராஸ்மெண்ட் பண்றாங்க. கேர்ள்ஸுக்கு வந்து ஹராஸ்மெண்ட் இருக்குன்னு சொன்னாலும் குழந்தை பிள்ளைகள் வந்து ஒரு சின்ன பிள்ளை, அந்த சின்ன பிள்ளைய மர்டர் பண்ற அளவுக்கு வந்து இந்த லோ வந்து ஒழுங்கா நடைமுறையில இல்லாதபடியா தான் இந்த இடத்துல அது நடந்திருக்கு. லோ வந்து ஒழுங்கா இருந்திருந்தாலோ அதுக்கு கொடுக்கிற தண்டனைய வந்து ஒரு கடினமா கொடுத்திருந்தாலோ இன்னொரு தரம் செய்ய போல யோசிப்பாங்க. ஒரு மேன் வந்து ஒரு பெண்ணை ஹராஸ்மெண்ட் பண்ண போல குடுக்கிற தண்டனைய கடுமையானதா கொடுக்கணும். கொடுத்திருந்தா அடுத்த தரம் அதை செய்யறதுக்கு யோசிப்பாங்க. ஆனா இங்க வந்து ஒன்லி வந்து சட்டமும் வந்து தண்டனையும் சரி புக்ஸ பொறுத்து தான் இருக்கு. நிறைய பேர் குற்றத்தை செய்தாலும் லோயர்ஸ் மூலமோ காசு மூலமோ வெளியே வராங்க. அந்த இடத்துல தண்டனை வந்து ஒழுங்கா வழங்கப்படல. தண்டனை ஒழுங்கா வழங்கப்பட்டிருந்தா இந்த ஒரு நிலைமை இன்னொரு பிள்ளைக்கு ஏற்படாது. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. So her response was for the last one that Sri Lanka's criminal law is very weak.
Yes.
We accused people are not punished. They are able to get away either through corruption or with the gaps in the law. So her point is, if people, the accused are punished, and if they're punished in a clear and strong way, that we can prevent this kind of incident happening again. On the second point, again her comment was that for a mother to come to this situation, there would have been other factors which affected her psychologically, but we don't even know what her other circumstances are like. So in that situation, punishing her is not going to give us the answer that we are looking for. And on the first point, her answer was, or her comment was, that we have lots of laws to recognize women's rights, but actually when we look at the practice of women's rights, we don't really enjoy rights. Is the summary accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we have another group, please?
My name
Yes,
is
go
Roman. We can say from these three incidents, it only depends on how they use their rights in a which kind of way they use their rights. Because from the first incident, the stream of Bandaranaike has a good educational support and also have a strong family support to become the first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. And we can't say from only that incident women have equality in our country. Then according to the third incident, the child was missed in I think in Trincomalee, but their family members didn't started to find the girl. Only after one day he started to searching for that girl. But I think their neighbors also have a responsibility to give safety for their children, because it not only based on one family or one child. It's a family. It's a problem in a society. Because every man also have a responsibility to give safety to the woman, and I think this is very important to lead our generation to the next level.
Very good, Somasundram, isn't it? Thank you. Sorry, did I get the name wrong?
My name is Govan.
Govan. Oh, I'm sorry. Very sorry. Now you're all going to have a good laugh over it. Very sorry. Very sorry. Okay, I'm not going to attempt that again. Jael, you all will get the last say.
Hi, I'm Tilna. I would like to talk about third question. මුලින්ම අපි හිතන්න ඕනේ දැන් young child rose local shop adapted murder. දැන් ඒක ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගත්තම මුලින්ම හිතන්න ඕනේ අපේ පවුල ගැන. දැන් ඒ කියන්නේ පවුලේ ළමයි ඉන්නවනේ. දැන් ඒ වගේ හිතන්න ඕනේ. දැන් තමන්ගේ ළමෙක් වගේ හිතලා තමයි කටයුතු කරන්න ඕනේ. දැන් උතන යක්ෂීන්යක් හින්දා ඕක මිනිසුන්ට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් තමන්ගේ ළමෙක් වගේම හිතලා සමානකරණය කරලා ඒ කියන්නේ තමන්ගේම ළමෙක් කියලා හිතන්න පුරුදු කරන්න ඕනේ මිනිස්සුන්ට. තව එකක් තමයි ලංකාවේ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයේ වැරද්දක් තියෙනවා උතන මේ මැනස් මිනිසුන්ගේ මැනස් හදන්නේ කොණ්ඩේ කපලා මේව කරලා විතරයි. කියන්නේ ලස්සට අදින්න පළඳින්න කරන්න මේවා කියලා දුන්නට ඇතුලෙන් මනස හදන්නේ හරියට ලංකාවේ කාගේවත් කොණ්ඩේ කපන්නයි අරක කරන්න මේ කරන්න රවලවන්න බෑ. ඔබ තමයි මේ අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයේ මනස් හදනවා කියලා කියන්නේ. ගොඩක් කියන්නේ සමාජයේ පැත්තෙන් උගන්වන්නේ এডুকেෂන් එක හරියට හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ ළමයින්ට. ඒ වගේ තමයි මනස් හදන එක තමයි ගොඩක්ම කරන්න ඕනේ. මේ තව මිනිහෙක්ගේ දුක තේරුම් ගන්න මේ තව මිනිහෙක්ව අන්ඩර්ස්ටෑන්ඩ් මේ කියන්නේ තේරුම් ගන්න මනස් හදන්නේ අපේ රටේ. කියන්නේ Tamanට හිතන විදියට අනිත් එක්කෙනාට තමන්ට හිතෙන්නේ කොහොමද මෙහෙම දෙයක් අනිත් එක්කෙනාට කරොත් එයාට හිතෙන්නේ මොනවද? ඒ වගේ හිතන්න ලංකාවේ ගොඩක් এডুকেෂන් සිස්ටම් එක එහෙම අනිත් එක්කෙනාව ඉක්වල් කරලා මේවා කරන්න ගොඩක් හදලා නැහැ. ඒක වෙනස් වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා තමයි මම කියන්නේ. වගේ ඔපිනියන් එකේ හැටියට.
Very good. Thank you very much. Susie, would you mind?
I shall attempt. So, Batiklu, can I say it to you in English and not in Tamil? Batiklu, is it okay? Yes, all right, okay. So what Thilina said, his idea was that we should focus on the last scenario about this little child who was abducted and murdered, right? Now, the thing that he feels that is wrong there is the fact that people were not able to see this child as their own child. They saw this as someone else's child, right? So he feels that empathy is what needs to be taught in schools, not about how you should have your hair or whether you should plait your hair or, you know, how you should dress and all of that. So these are the things that they're taught at school, isn't it? We have these rules that we follow on how we are supposed to come to school and how the education system goes. But no one's really educating people to be sensitive to others, to have empathy towards others. Because if we start looking at each other as equals, maybe, you know, every child is my child, then you won't be able to do such offenses to others. Thilina, I hope I was able to summarize your idea. Thank you, Thilina.
Thank you to both of you. So now what remains is for me to wrap up, okay? So our session was about citizenship in Sri Lanka, women's rights in Sri Lanka. So the main point I want you to understand is that citizenship is a legal concept, women's rights is a legal concept, but it is not only a legal concept. There are social, political, cultural aspects to citizenship, including women's rights. If women can't enjoy their rights as women, as equals, it is difficult for them to be active citizens. And that responsibility of developing active citizenship is not only a responsibility of women, it is also a responsibility of all of us who are part of our society. So on this, at the moment, actually, Sri Lanka is going through a very interesting experience. For the last 3-4 months, men, but also women, have come out, engaging in protests, exercising their freedom of expression, right? And being citizens. They are asking their government to guarantee them their rights, asking the government to act according to law, right? Having a discussion and debate with the government, asking for better democracy, better government. So this is actually a very interesting time to then also talk about active citizenship, our responsibilities to our own country, and then understand that part of our responsibility as citizens is also to ensure wherever we are, whether at home, at work, at school, in religious places, wherever we are, that we have a duty to be active citizens. We have rights as citizens, and that includes rights of women. So if you are a woman, you have to recognize that you have those rights, and you must always try and support other women. If you're a man, you must recognize that your freedoms and your rights as a citizen are also impacted if a woman's rights as a citizen are not enjoyed. So always try to see how you can also contribute to supporting citizenship and equality of women. All right, so with that, I will end this session. Thank you for participating in the discussion as well. I hope this was useful. Back to you, Susan.
Thank you so much for your time, and also I had a lot of things that I learned from today's session. So thank you so much for that. And I do hope that, you know, these young ones, you're able to realize that the law is for you. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, the law is for you, right? And what is stopping us from using it is because we don't know about it. So it is our duty to find out what is our rights. It's our duty to find out what the law is. And then we have, you know, knowledge to make proper decisions, especially as women and men. Like Ms. Samarathna said, that, you know, we always think, okay, we're talking about women's rights, but why women's rights? Because it's only if the women's rights are recognized and the women's rights are promoted and she's able to enjoy these rights, are we all included in it, right? So it's not only about the women, but by standing up for the women, we are standing up for all of humanity, right? So thank you so much, Ms. Samarathna, for taking your time. I know how busy you are, and your Sunday day off. I know the little ones were also, I saw you like multitasking with them. So thank you so much for that. And yes, I hope, you know, we are able to get in touch with you for future programs like this, ma'am. Thank you so much. So centers, thank you for joining us again Sunday morning. Jala Center, please remain. We need to have a little chat. Amplipite and Batiklo, it was a pleasure having you as always. Thank you for all the interaction. And we'll see you next Sunday with another topic. Do look at the group, because we will be, the coordinators will let you know on the topic and who it is, right? So take care. Have a good week ahead, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.